Madison and I have been married for about 15 years, and we moved from our hometown of Atlanta, Georgia to Aurora, Colorado about a year and a half ago for Madison's job. And at the time, we had been struggling with our marriage for about 6 years, mainly related to our differences in parenting a challenging child, shall we say. Really made us realize
our differences.
Yeah, our different parenting philosophies. So before we knew it, our home really became what I felt like was a battleground almost, just lots of arguing and fighting. And we tried so many things over the years to make it better. Marriage retreats, seeing different marital counselors, took parenting classes. And some of those things would help temporarily, but they really just ultimately were Band-Aids. So a year and a half ago when Madison said he wanted to move us to Colorado, I didn't want to move here. I had made a very strong support system for myself with my family and girlfriends and church and work to just help me get through being in this marriage. And I was being taken away from all of that. Shortly after we moved here, we were looking for a church, and our home is right across the street from Coyote Hills Elementary School, where the Edge was meeting at the time. And we saw a little sign that said the Edge Church, and we thought, well, we don't really have an excuse not to walk
100 yards.
100 yards or whatever it was. And we immediately felt so welcomed at the Edge, and our kids loved it. So we became involved pretty quickly. But 6 months after our move, things still weren't better with our marriage. And on December 23rd of 2011, I asked Madison for a divorce. It was very painful, but I just felt like I was at the end of my rope, and that the only way I was going to find that peaceful, joyful home was to
somewhere else.
Well,
I said to Beverly, give me 90 days. That I know God does not want this family to break up. I know that God brought 2 children in this world through us, and that we're meant to be here for these children. But I asked Beverly for 90 days, thinking that it was something I could do
right.
as a man, as a husband, to fix everything. But it turns out that that's not really what happened.
During that 90 days, Pastor Ryan did a sermon on divorce, and that his words, God's words through Pastor Ryan, just hit me like a ton of bricks that day. I remember just sobbing in church because I just felt like God was speaking directly to me. And I remember Pastor Ryan saying God hates divorce. And it does say in the Bible, God hates divorce. And the reason he hates divorce is because it tears families apart and tears people apart. I just kept thinking of my children and thinking, I know God's telling me I haven't done everything. The counselors, the marriage retreats, parenting classes, that wasn't God. I realized I had not completely handed our marriage over to God at that point. So I just said, God, I'm handing our marriage over to you. You're going to have to do something miraculous here because I'm ready to walk out the door. And but what I specifically prayed was, please help me turn toward Madison rather than away from him.
I used to always say to you, I want my darling back.
Yeah, I was completely emotionally disconnected from Madison. I actually told him I was not in love with him anymore. And so I said to God, please help me. I was just taking baby steps. Please help me just turn toward him as opposed to away from him. And if there is any little seed of love still there, please help that grow again. And over the last year, it's just amazing. I would just do such little things as come and sit next to Madison on the couch when he was watching TV and hold his hand. And the more I turned toward him, the more he turned toward me, and it just turned into more acts of kindness that just sort of fed off of each other.
We're still normal people that argue and fight and whatever, but we're able to solve those problems faster and easier and more calmly.
No one's lives ever are perfect, and no one's marriage is ever perfect, but I've come to a place through God's help and the support of the Edge Church where I have fallen back in love with my husband, and we do have that peaceful, joyful home. And it's not something that could have happened through any counselor or class or retreat. It's something that only God could have done in our lives. And I find it ironic that the counselor in Atlanta before we moved here said, if you move to Colorado, I don't think your marriage will make it. And I think if we hadn't moved to Colorado and found the Edge Church and heard God's word through Pastor Ryan, I think our marriage wouldn't have made it.